is because, to me, it's like so many metaphors we're going to talk about today, but that bridge across obstacles is all about what we're going to be trying to picture in our mind. What happens when you run into an obstacle? Anybody here ever had an obstacle in their life? And what do we do about it? So there's a number of ways to deal with it. We'll talk about the psychological way on simple obstacles, but we'll talk about the spiritual way, and that is going across that bridge before you've even handled the obstacle. And that is, imagine yourself on the other side of the obstacle and picture yourself already there. How does it feel? How do you feel? What kind of differences does it make in your life? You've become that person that's gone past the obstacle. So now it's just a matter of let go and let God, because we know we don't have to worry about the how. We just have to get ourselves in that position of knowing we can be past that obstacle. And all kinds of serendipity takes place when you do that. You're watching TV, something pops on. That's my first step. You're listening to the radio. You're out with a friend. They say something that leads you to the next step. You're in a cafe. Somebody sits down next to you, a stranger, and you strike up a conversation, and bingo, you're on your way to the next step and the next step. Serendipity occurs. But if we're still on the other side, being blocked, everything seems to get bigger and more difficult. We focus on the problem. And what happens? What we focus on gets bigger. So I want to tell you a story about a Buddhist who was on a journey. And he had traveled for days and days. He was a young Buddhist, still learning a lot about the Buddhism. And he came to this big river that was rushing by him, and it was really broad, and he didn't know how he was going to get across. And he spent hours trying to decide. And then he saw one of his masters on the other side. And he said, "Master, how can I get to the other side?" And the master looked up and down the river, and then he yelled back, "You're already on the other side." And that's all we have to do. We have to picture ourselves on the other side of that obstacle. Because as soon as we're picturing the obstacle, what happens is we build up all kinds of worry, anxiety, fear. And what does that do for us? That closes us down. There's no clarity. It's just all a dust bowl of confusion at times. The moment we let go of that, get on the other side and let God, all of that goes away. And so what do we replace fear with? What's the opposite of fear? Love. And what is love a synonym for? A synonym for. It's easy to say. Synonym for God, right? Love, God, it's all one. And so we're basically replacing fear with God, replacing illusion with reality. Speaking of illusions, how many of you read the book Illusions? Okay, you remember what Richard Bach said about problems? Elaine sent this to me yesterday. I'd already had it in mind, but it was so good to get confirmation. Thank you, Elaine. There's no such thing as a problem without a gift in its hands for you. Doesn't that make sense? Doesn't that make perfect sense? No such thing as a problem without a gift in its hands for you. So what are those gifts of success? Well, we tend to grow. We tend to gain more confidence. We learn new skills. We have the ability to help somebody else that has a similar problem. We experience joy in that success. We experience gratitude. Our life just seems so much more free-flowing when we've learned to get over obstacles. But what do we do with obstacles? We categorize them usually. Small, medium, large, impossible, right? I'll give you some examples. Small obstacle. I always, and some of you may know this if you know Joanne and I very well, for the first few years of our marriage, she was trying to train me to not only rinse the dishes, not only put them all on the shelf, but put them in the dishwasher. That's a concept guys don't always get, okay? I mean, step 1 and 2 is easy. Step 3. So she said, there's actually, you don't even need step 2. You can rinse and put it in the dishwasher. Now, I was telling Lawrence about that yesterday when he was over playing ping pong, and Joanne was listening, and she said, you know how long that took you? I said, yeah, 10 years probably. She said, no, 20. She's not here, so stick with my story. It's 10 years, that's all it took. We have lots of back and forth on that. It's all fun, though. Yeah. Anyway, so that's a small obstacle, and the way we can handle it is just psychologically. What? All we have to do is say, I know I can do this. I just have to make it a priority. Mindfulness, right? 10 years worth. Now, maybe it wasn't that long, but it does take time to change a habit, right? And so I had to change that habit. I didn't need Spirit to help me, although Spirit could have helped probably, but just start putting them in there. And as she said yesterday, yes, he does it all the time now, and she smiled real big. So what was the gift? Happy wife, happy life? Right? Right? Yeah. So that's an example of a small obstacle. We have big obstacles. The most terrible obstacle I ever had in my life was going through a divorce. It was the lowest point of my life. I went through a depression. I had to figure out how to get out of that. I couldn't do it on my own. But what happened was, you're going to love this, my ex-wife gave me a gift to go see an astrologer, which I did, and he said, you know what you need to do? You need to go see this Unity minister named Mary Catherine McDougall in Austin, Texas. I went to see her, and I said, I'm depressed, I'm going through all this, and she said, honey, it's real simple. You only need to do 2 things. 1, get up off your chair of self-pity and get out and start doing something physical. Whatever it is, just get going. Start doing something. I started jogging. Oh, geez. Well, I hadn't been jogging. I was still smoking. I had to quit smoking. Yeah, this is 40 years ago. And so what happened was, she said, the second thing is start helping other people out. And she says, by the way, we've got a youth group, and they need someone to teach them about leadership. What are you doing this Sunday? Yeah, so there I was. 7 years later, I was still the youth minister there. And so it changed my life completely. The biggest change you can ever realize in your life is to realize that you're a spiritual being having a human experience. And that's the transformation that occurred for me. Without that terrible, terrible obstacle, that wouldn't have happened. That was the biggest gift of my life, and it was the biggest obstacle of my life. So what about impossible? How do we deal with that? Global warming. What are we going to do about that? I'm too little. I can't do it by myself. It's the same exact process. We picture ourselves beyond it. What happens when we are beyond global warming? How do we get to that point to be able to say, I let go and I let God? And I know that with God all things are possible. Nothing is impossible. And what happens is that our consciousness changes. And everybody that starts thinking that way, their consciousness changes. They start to see all the beautiful spots in the world. They grow. We focus on them. That's what it takes, is a consciousness change, not technology. We change our consciousness. And right now we're going through the greatest awakening in consciousness the world has ever seen. So we're in a beautiful, perfect time for us all to get our consciousness on that other side and see that it's going to happen. Let's get out of the pity party and get on to knowing that this is going to be solved by our consciousness together, okay? So I asked you in the title, does every obstacle in life have a gift for us? How many of you believe that every obstacle has a gift for us? Wow, I'm preaching to the choir. I guess I'm done. Okay. Yeah, well, actually, the first part of my talk was the whole thing, get on the other side of it. But I wanted to give you a couple of examples. So what I did is, how many of you know about Abraham Hicks? Many of you, okay. So I went to Abraham Hicks on YouTube and I said, tell me about obstacles. And as Abraham Hicks started, that's through Esther Hicks, started talking, guess what was flashing on the screen? A whole bunch of photos of a Spartan race with all the 20 obstacles that are included in a Spartan race. And I thought, geez, I just ran a Spartan race. I know what that's all about. And there's the example they're giving. A Spartan race. How many of you have heard of a Spartan race? Anybody? A lot of you? Okay. Well, I'll show you a couple of pictures just to show you what that's all about. See how this technology works. Could be a consciousness problem.
For those listening on radio, description.
Okay, you may have to take over, Kevin. It's not... Oh, there it is. There's the first one. Okay. So in the Spartan race I was in a few weeks ago up in Seattle area, there was quite a few people, 30,000 people, but the race I was in had 1,631 people in it. And the starting line looks like this. They're all getting ready to take off. And then, go ahead, next slide, please. Yeah, so then we took off, and the first thing I realized is I'm at the back of a crowd. This is before the rains. It was all dust. The dust was that thick. And I'm running behind this group, and this dust is just overcoming. It's just unbelievable. And I'm thinking, this isn't going to work. What am I going to do? And I said, I'm just going to slow down and let them get ahead of me. You know, the tortoise and the hare. I'll figure a way to catch up at some point. And sure enough, as it says here, wait for clarity. This is the message that I got from this, okay? This is the metaphor. Wait for clarity. Don't fight the obstacle when you're in the dust of confusion or poor vision of the way forward. Let the dust settle. This is also in the Tao. And if you've studied the Tao Te Ching, one of the verse 56 says, let the dust settle. Close your mouth, close off your senses, let the dust settle. That's one of the first things we want to do before we try to deal with an obstacle. Oh, it worked. Did I do that? Oh, wow. This was the first obstacle. It wasn't this exact one. I didn't have a picture of it. It was actually a piece of board that was sawed into a big pyramid sitting 5 foot high, and you run up to it and you get over it and you jump over. And as I went down the other side, I fell on my hip. And I thought, uh-oh, that's a poor start. I'm in pain. I'm not sure I'm going to keep going. But guess what? As soon as you say, well, for me it was this way. I had an experience listening to Wayne Dyer talking about Sai Baba, who a friend visited in India. And the friend of his came back and said, Sai Baba was in a wheelchair with multiple fractures. And I said to Sai Baba, how can you do this? You just seem so normal. You're just talking to everybody and you're doing everything you always do. He says, oh, I have pain, but I choose not to suffer. And I thought, wow, that's exactly right. Jump up, get past it, and as I ran on, the pain dissipated, and I was able to keep going. And this one, what I thought about from the Tao was every journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. And put one foot in front of the other, one foot in front of the other. And I kept saying that to myself all the way through this. This is about a few hundred yards uphill. And so that was 40 pounds. But the big problem is not the weight, it's that bucket sitting on your shoulder. It gets sore. But anyway, let's see. Oh, here we go. This was the most fun part. And as I say, when you get stuck in the mud of life, our obstacles make us feel like we're stuck. But if you have a friend that's successfully gotten past it, that's what you want to get. That was my daughter. She's 61 years old. And she's done this over and over again. So she said, Dad, I'm going to stay with you through this whole thing. And so she did. There was only one time when I had to back up and help her. Yeah. It was the inverted wall that you have to climb up and then get over it. She got stuck there, so I ran back around it. Yeah, that's the friend helping you out, right? Okay, this is the spear throw, and let's see if I can get to play. There it is. So sometimes we miss the mark. And it's interesting because in Aramaic, Old Aramaic, sin was an archery term, and it stood for missing the mark. You miss the mark. What do you do when you miss the mark? You start trying again. You practice some more. And pretty soon you get good at it. So any obstacle you haven't gotten past, don't say, hey, I'm done. Try it again. Go back to it. Persevere. Okay? This is the rope climb. You can press the start on that maybe. Okay. Now, the rope climb was really... Hush. I'm talking. Okay, this was my cheering section. And you'll see when I get to the top, near the top, my daughter says, stop, let go. Why? Because there's a bell at the top you have to ring to prove that you made it, right? Somebody before me had hit the bell so hard it wrapped around and it was gone. And I got up there and there's no bell. So she says, let go, come on down. And the lesson there is, look ahead to this. Scope it out. Pre-pave where you're going. Make sure you've made a perfect decision as to what you're going to do, how you're going to get there, and what the end point looks like. I didn't do that. I just grabbed a rope and started climbing. And if I just grabbed the rope next to it, I would have had a bell to ring, right? Okay. So at the end, Julie and I finished ahead of 600 of the 1,631 competitors. Thank you. Thank you. And my point in saying that is that I want you to all to think about what your skills are and what skills you may not be fully manifesting in your life because you're saying, I'm too this, I'm too that, I'm too afraid, I can't sing, I can't dance, I can't do this well, I can't do that well. And what I have a skill that I used in here. You all have skills. For example, these singers, what an amazing skill. And someone like Katie gets up and starts singing with them. She overcomes that fear of obstacles such as, what am I going to do? Public speaking. A lot of people would rather die than public speaking. I felt the same way for a while. And so I went to Toastmasters. And Jane and I actually went together, by the way. And we learned public speaking together. So whatever skills you have, don't say, I'm too old, I'm too this, I'm too that. You have those skills for a reason. Step out there and exhibit them, make the best of them, love those skills, and share them with the world, okay? Now, I wanted to talk about one other thing. I talked about it a few weeks ago. My talk was labeled, No Complaints, Only Praise. How many of you were here for that? Oh, more than half. Great. So I've got some bracelets to pass out today because last time we ran out, so I ordered more. So at the end of this, you'll have a bracelet. Yeah, they're back there. Thank you. When we do the collection, you'll get it. But I want to talk about what complaints do when it comes to obstacles. When you're complaining about, let's say that I'm getting ready to run this Spartan race, and I'm complaining, geez, I had to work out for so many months. It took me so long. My God, I'm so sore. I had to spend so much time going back and forth to CrossFit. How does that help anybody to do a better job, to inspire them, somebody else to do it? I actually loved doing it. I'm going to do another one. It was one of my favorite things to do because it gave me the confidence to say, hey, I can do this again. I've done it once. What I can do once, I can do again. And that's exactly what you all can do with your skills. Jack's skill, singing. We haven't seen you up here that much, Jack, but my gosh, what a singer he is. What a great baritone voice. And he's not afraid to show it and share it.
It's a far cry from CrossFit.
But I don't have that skill. So, yeah, what I would ask you is, can you always affirm the highest and the best when it comes to obstacles? And the answer is, if you don't, if you complain about it, you're closing the door. You're starting to close the door to any success in that. So we want to get rid of complaints. What do we want to replace it with? Praise. Yes, praise. I know this is going to be an amazing thing. Thank you, Spirit, for being with me on this. Thank you for leading me forward and making a success of this. Thank you for the gift I'm going to get out of it. What gift? Confidence, gratitude, joy. Oh my gosh, I just felt so, I can now help others that want to do this. I can tell them about the obstacles and how to fall over the first one, and or maybe how to work to make sure you don't, okay? So I wanted to read one little bit out of Unity magazine. I found this out in the foyer out there. It's called Unity Magazine, 1936. And I was so surprised to find this. It says, obstacle or opportunity? Listen to this. The most significant moment in our life is when we realize that an obstacle can be an opportunity. It is our awakening to the fact that there is something within us more powerful than that which is without. It is the moment of our conscious awareness of our unity with God, of the fact that we are not working alone, but with His steadfast help. And here's one other statement I wanted to read. I think that the most profound experience the human heart can know, to realize your kinship with God, to know that you can work in harmony with God, it is indeed a revelation. It is an illumination so great that your life ought to be one of paean of praise. Paean of praise. That's singing, dancing, paean. Songs, hallelujah chorus, right? A paean of praise. Doesn't that sound great, a paean of praise? So I was going to share an example of an obstacle in my life out of my book, but what does it mean when a minister looks at his watch, right? Nothing. No. Let's see, we started, I think I do have another few minutes. Okay. All right. So I'll tell this quick story, and then we'll end with a quote from Ephesians. So this story from my book is chapter 44. My book Flash, it's back there if any of you want to buy it. It's $15, and all the money goes to Unity, okay? All of it. So buy a bunch of them. If you run out, I'll bring some more. Yeah. Okay, this is called The Amazing Suspended Motorcycle, and because it's several pages long, I'm going to tell it instead of reading it, okay? So this trip, my brother and a foster brother and I were making back from Haleyville, Alabama, back to Chicago, and we're in the, excuse me, we're in the Appalachian Mountains, and our modus operandi for riding is just go wherever the wind blows. It's the process, it's the journey, not the destination. And so we were just enjoying the journey, and we found ourselves on this gravel back road, which we weren't really as pleased to be on a gravel road, and it was going up over a mountain. And there's switchbacks, and the gravel was getting deeper, and I'm leading, and Ed's behind me with Janice on the back of his motorcycle. I've got a friend, Marge, on the back of my motorcycle. And I'm looking in the rearview mirror as he comes around this real tight switchback going up. I see his bike go right over the edge. Yeah, he and Janice both disappear. And I quickly get off the bike and I run back there. And as I get there, there's these two hands coming up over the cliff, and they're climbing up. And we look down, and the motorcycle has gone into the trees and caught in the vines, and it's swinging in the breeze about 6 foot above the hillside, going down like that. And it was such a comical sight that we all crack up and we start laughing. And after about 2 minutes of total joy and just laughing at what had happened, Marge says, "Okay, boys, we've had our fun. Now, how are we going to get that bike out of there?" And I said to Ed, "You know what? I've got a machete that I brought along, if you get on that bike, I'll chop away the vines and you can just ride it down. He says, that's going to drop 6 foot. He says, why don't you get on there and ride it? And I said, well, it's your bike. So you decide. He says, okay, I'll get on it. So he gets on it, and he's sitting there like this, and he says, okay, open the gate and let this bronco buck. And I start chopping away the vines, and sure enough, it starts slipping a little bit, and all of a sudden it just lets go. And this is a 750 Honda, you'll know it. It weighs about, 600 or 700 pounds. And it drops down, and it hits real hard, but it bounces, and it starts careening down the hill, hitting branches, hitting this, hitting that. And amazingly enough, it comes right out onto the gravel on the lower street, the lower road there. Right out onto the gravel. It was amazing. And we sat there thinking, oh my God, what a gift this was. That we were able to get it out of there, no damage, we can continue our ride, no problem. It was joy, it was gratitude, it was all those things you get from overcoming an obstacle. So there's lots of stories like that in this book, and Unity can use any investment you want to make in that. Let me know if we run out. So I'm going to close with a couple of things, a reading from Ephesians 3:20. God wants you to stretch your faith, break through every barrier, and accomplish great things for God's glory. So that's, to me, really inspiring. Everything about overcoming obstacles is part of how we grow in life. So what I'd like you to leave with today is knowing that you have a process to get through the biggest obstacle. In fact, let's not call them big, small, or anything. Let's just say to get through the next step. And that is picturing yourself on the other side. And knowing with perfect clarity that you can let the dust settle and go forward and be successful with every obstacle and change your life. Namaste.